Good morning, everyone. My name is Muhammad Rabbani. I'm the head of an organization, an NGO called Cage. Our organization is based in the UK. It's based in the UK, although we have an international focus. And what I would like to share with you is our experience in dealing with French neocolonialism in a very interesting way, mostly domestically, inside France. How France has created policies in order to manage its local populations, particularly those that it deems different and foreign. We already know, and we've heard already from some of the speakers, the larger picture. France is losing its strategic influence. It's had a devastating few years on the African continent, and the people of that continent, particularly in the Sahel region, are fighting for their freedom and independence. It has also lost strategic influence at the global level. The United States has embarrassingly looked over France and set up a strategic alliance with the Australian and the UK governments in something called AUKUS. But I want to turn our attention to the situation in France itself. In October 2020, the French government and the President Macron announced a new set of measures. He said that he will be passing a set of laws called the anti-separatism laws. And essentially what the French government has done is taken its experience in Algeria and other colonial endeavors and used it as a template to apply to its domestic population, domestic foreign population as France sees it. And it's weaponized the attitude of Islamophobia and racism to completely dismantle the civil society in France. So since October 2020, several high-profile organizations have been completely banned. They've been made criminalized and they've been shut down. One of them is called CCIF, which was an organization specializing in holding government to account for its Islamophobic policies. Another organization called Baraka City, which is a humanitarian organization, was completely shut down, banned, and criminalized. All of its assets were confiscated. Another organization, which is a bookshop, was completely banned. And in total, I can give you the figures. 28,000 interventions were made by the French government, only targeting the businesses, organizations, associations that belong to the Muslim community. These communities come from different backgrounds. Some of them are North African origin, some of them are from other places. But it's a deliberate, systematic, discriminatory policy. 28,000 investigations were launched, and that resulted in 906 organizations to be closed. i.e., France is very deliberately designing Muslim people, its own citizens, out of society. It is depriving it of access to society. Muslims cannot run businesses, they cannot have masjids, they cannot have civil society activism unless there's a condition. And that condition reveals the true nature of the colonial endeavor. That condition is, first, these organizations and individuals must sign up to something called the Republican Charter. If you do not agree with French Republican values, then you are cast outside of French society. In addition, in the process of this systematic obstruction, 50 million euros have been seized from French Muslim citizens. So this policy is the new face of the colonial endeavor, domestically applied inside French territory. Similar to the colonial era, the state employs its police forces to police and subdue the Muslim community. And since 2022, every single month there's been at least one death per month at the hands of the police. The French state criminalizes Muslim children. You will have heard very recently that young Muslim females, if they go to school or college, they cannot wear certain dress code, which is called the abaya ban. This long type of dress, you can find it in Primark, in H&M. You can find it in general stores. But when a Muslim child wears this dress code, they are criminalized. They are banned from education. So I quickly want to mention my own personal experience. Since 2020, as I mentioned, when the anti-separatism law was announced, our organization started to put pressure on France. We made a coalition of NGOs and we submitted a complaint to the United Nations Human Rights Council reporting France for its discriminatory policies. In addition, we wrote a letter referring France to the European Commission. Ursula von der Leyen, up till today, has not replied. We have applied pressure through public advocacy, drawing attention to France's discriminatory policies. I visited France around March 2021, and I visited the Ministry of Interior. I took a video outside the Ministry of Interior, and I drew attention to the fact that behind me in that building, there is an agency called the SGCI PDR. This agency is a domestic propaganda agency, which creates the mood music. It creates the opinion inside France, which targets and discriminates against Muslim people, casting them as national security threats, casting them as people who are different to French society. Soon after, a couple of weeks later, the French authorities reported me to the police. And I then was banned from entering France. I visited Poland in October 2022, and I gave a speech on France. 2 weeks later, the French authorities issued an order across all of the Schengen territory to stop me from entering the Schengen territory, even though I'm from Europe. I mean, I'm in the UK, but unfortunately the British, they left the European Union, as you know, through Brexit. So when I tried to visit OSCE the next year, meaning only last month in Poland, I landed in Poland and I was banned. I was banned from entering Poland. The reason the police gave was the French authorities had issued a notice saying that I could not enter Poland. As a result, I could not attend the conference, the OSCE conference. So what this proves is the French policy of racism, Islamophobia, and its domestic colonial policy. It doesn't want any public attention, and it's extremely weak and fragile, to the extent that it intrudes on the work of a human rights NGO like CAGE and bars us from entering the territory of Schengen, Europe, just to silence any criticism of its very oppressive, unjust policies. So I would like to conclude by mentioning that the overall trajectory of a strategic downgrade globally is reflected domestically in France. It's facing huge protests, and it is using the Muslim community as a scapegoat. All across France, there is a consensus, whether it's left, right, or center, that if you are Islamophobic, you will gain political capital. 2 months ago, the former Prime Minister of France, Edouard Philippe, announced that if he becomes president, he will introduce a separate set of laws just for Muslims. This is legal apartheid. It's legal apartheid. And in French public debate, no one raises a question. No one says that this is completely unacceptable. It's become completely normal that Muslim communities are scapegoated and this discrimination and racism is promoted inside France. So to conclude, I'd like to thank the organizers for giving us the opportunity to share these experiences. I'll be very keen to connect with all of you to share our and how we can work together. I don't think it will be appropriate for me to end this discussion today, this very important meeting, discussing neocolonialism, violation of human rights, without mentioning that there are not just neocolonialism happening today, there's actual colonialism happening up till today. If you look at Kashmir, it is an occupied territory that is colonized by India. And the worst of all of them is the occupied territory of Palestine. As we see on our screens every single day, babies being killed and the nation, Gaza, being destroyed, it is absolutely incumbent upon us that we draw attention to the occupation, the colonial, settler colonial occupation of Israel as it is causing devastation to Palestine. I invite the conference maybe to take an initiative and maybe put together a statement or something that we can show that we are behind the freedom, the aspirations of the Palestinian people to get back their homeland from a foreign occupation force, which is the foremost settler colonial state in the world today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Rabbani.